Hello, and welcome back to the Adventures in Advising podcast. This is Matt Markin, and we are continuing our series with our special guest host, Dr. Margaret Mbindyo from Millersville University. Margaret, hello again.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Doing
so glad
very,
to
very
be here.
well. Yeah, I'm so glad for you to be back. And these have been fantastic conversations. So I got to know, where are we going today with the conversation?
And thank you so much. I am so excited today, Matt. We have Africa represented in the podcast. And we have 3 professionals, academic advising professionals from South Africa, from Kenya, and from Nigeria, speaking about academic advising practices, student support systems, general student success initiatives in each country. And so this is really going to be interesting because, as we all know, Africa is rich with culture. And as they say in Africa, a child or a student is actually the responsibility of the whole village. And so what can we learn from wherever we are in this globe, whether you are in Japan, whether you are in the USA, whether you are in Australia? Please be ready to get something out of these conversations. Thank you very much, Matt.
All right, so that's my cue. I'll jump off, bring your guests on, and as always, have a fantastic conversation, Margaret.
Thank you. Wonderful. Welcome to this podcast. We are so happy to have you here. Let me just begin by introducing myself. Again, my name is Dr. Margaret Mbindyo. I am a faculty member and associate professor at Millersville University in Pennsylvania. I am so privileged to be able to do this podcast. Specifically, this one is important to me because it's featuring colleagues from Africa. Africa is still working towards structured advising, as we are going to discuss. And so with me here are people or professionals, administrators, faculty, academic advisors that are really championing structured advising in their respective countries. And so without further ado, I am going to call upon them to introduce themselves, and I am going to start with Gugu from South Africa. Please introduce yourself, Gugu.
Hi, Margaret. Thanks. It's lovely to be here on this podcast for this conversation. I am Gugu Khanye, the Director for Student Success at the University of the Free State in Central South Africa. And I have been in the advising space for 16 years. And largely my focus has been on professionalizing advising, implementing advising for the purposes of preparing students and presenting a social just community, of emphasizing student success that gives equitable opportunity for employability or entrepreneurship, but also then researching the field of academic advising. So I would consider myself my existence in 3 domains, and I'm excited to have this conversation that we're about to have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. At this point, I would like to call upon Professor Mwania to introduce himself.
Thank you, Margaret. My name is Jonathan Muema Mwania. I'm a professor of educational psychology at Makueni University College in Kenya. I have been doing academic advising for the last 14 years. My interest has been the changing nature of the student, especially with the technology, because the students have been evolving. I've also done a lot of research in the context of the African perspective, how we can use our culture to work on the students' discipline and so on and so forth. Thank you.
I would like to call upon Dr. Bimpe to introduce herself.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Oyebimpe Olusanya, a counseling psychologist. and a Deputy Chief Counselor at the Federal University of Technology Akure. I've been in the service of the university for 21 years, providing support that helps students achieve, I will call it the affective domain area of life: personal, social, career, psychological wellness, and educational too, because that's the basic reason why they came to the university. Providing support that transcends just giving out consent, but helping them to adjust to academic work to come out well. And I also work as a teen or youth developer with different organizations, where I also provide leadership, support, empowerment to students, to youth, even to young adults in different ways. Thank you.
Thank you so much and welcome to this space. This is critically important discussion. In the last 4 episodes, we have done global episodes from the UK, Italy, Middle East. We have concluded that students are the same, irrespective of where they are. And as I said in the beginning, in Africa, we have what we call it takes a village. We take it really serious. You know, it takes a village to raise a student to success. And there is a strong sense of community and family in many African cultures, irrespective of whether you are in North Africa, in West Africa, East or South Africa. So my question is, how does that it takes a village mentality show up in college or in university? Let's start with you, Professor Jonathan.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. The it takes a village mentality is deeply reflected in Kenyan university life. Students often rely not only on lectures, but also on peers, roommates, church groups, student leaders, and extended family for emotional and academic support. Many students arrive at the university carrying the hopes of entire families or communities. So success is seen as a collective but not individual. Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello from www.designerminidoodles.com, home of the best quality mini, micro mini, and toy-sized golden doodle puppies, as well as miniature Bernedoodle puppies and miniature Cavapoo puppies in the United States. Here at Designer Mini Doodles, we have a nanny, and we are able to fly our puppies anywhere in the country, allowing you to get some of the best bloodlines from top quality breeding program in the United States.
So success is seen as a collective, but not as an individual thing. Thank you. Gugu, let's go with you.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with Prof. Jonathan. I think the one thing we have seen come alive in the South African context is also the involvement of business in terms of our community. We recognize that many of our students come from underprivileged backgrounds. They need funding, they need access to employment and mentorship in that space. So in addition to the university community that we have invited business into our spaces as advisors of how we can best prepare and continue to support students so that there is that transition from university into the world of work. So for us in South Africa, we also recognize the existence of peers, and that's why we put great emphasis on peer advising as a structure and a model that is intentional in how we create a safety net in supporting students. So yes, there's horizontal, vertical, and diagonal relationships that enhance the advising relationship and what contributes ultimately to success.
Thank you so much, Gugu. Greatly appreciated. That brings an angle of peer support, which is actually, I would say, kind of universal, because in the US, there's a lot of emphasis on peer mentoring, peer support systems in the classroom. So that is really something that is global in nature. Dr. Mbimpe, how would you respond to this question?
Thank you. In Nigeria, just like my other colleagues have said, it's similar. When we talk about the peer support, it's in two forms, though. We have among the peers, among themselves, and again, the support of lecturers and the non-teaching staff. They often go beyond academic, even like student affairs, sometimes make calls to help students. You know, the peer, the junior students put the senior one through. It's like mentoring by the senior one. So it's a communal thing. If one person understands the concept, they teach the rest. That is among the students. And when it comes to staff, both teaching and non-teaching staff of the university, we also go beyond just coming to do a structured assignment of either lecturing or other administrative role. By the time we see any student in problem or situations that demand assistance, everybody rally around to make sure such a person is supported. And at the end of the day, the student has a successful end. It could involve family bereavement. It becomes everybody getting involved. Accommodation issue, problems, even about fee. I mean, payment of school fee. We've seen situations where staff, students contribute to ensure a student gets their school fees paid so that they will not drop out of the university. So this is it takes a village to raise the child mentality that we operate also in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mbimpe. I remember when I was in the university or in Kenya, Kenyatta University, during my time, we actually relied on peer advising because of the power distance between a student and the professors. We preferred, most of us, to talk to our peers because the culture does not permit at that time a student talking to an elder professor or even someone in power. And I wonder whether that is still the case. And so my question right now is, of course, due to culture, there's a high degree of power distance. We know that for sure, between students and professors. And we are talking of college, university students. How does this respect for authority impact a student's willingness to ask for help when they are confused or when they are failing or have another issue? Let's start with you, Professor Jonathan.
Thank you, Margaret. Respect for authority is very strong in Kenya, and this can sometimes discourage students from approaching professors openly. Some students fear appearing disrespectful, incompetent, or too forward. As a result, they may first seek help from classmates or unofficial networks before speaking directly to faculty. Universities are increasingly encouraging more approachable lecturer-student relationship to bridge this gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Gugu.
It's really something that remains true, and I think, as you rightfully said, it's in the African context, and that's what makes it so unique. But what we've seen play out, and that's why we've placed the great emphasis on peer advising for us, is any student leader that is appointed in a South African university, many of our South African universities, we try and capacitate with peer advising training. And that is to ensure that they continue to tell their story, but also share accurate information, because students also, what we've seen is they learn from each other's stories. And we want to leverage on those stories, and that's why we use that. So latest trends that we are seeing is that we've got student influencers that are promoters and proponents of the university that shares the accurate information. Technology is also actually coming in as a role player in us bridging this gap between the power dynamics, because one could say in the 21st, 22nd century, we're still seeing this. Is this even possible? Absolutely. It is how we are raised in the African culture. But technology is fortunately helping us bridge that, because behind the technology, you don't see age. So at times it gives that fluidity of having that trust relationship to gain reliable information, as opposed to following, and I think Prof. Jonathan mentioned it, following unreliable sources of information. So at every point, institutions need to try and bridge that gap by being innovative, by implementing technology. We are having peer advisors and capacitating peer advisors on an ongoing rotation to ensure that the information dispersed to students remains reliable and validated by university sources, but also to bridge the power dynamic gaps between professionals and themselves as students to make information and resources more accessible and equitable.
Thank you, Gugu. Dr. Bimpe.
Thank you. Concerning power distance between students and professors in Nigeria, well, it's an age-long established culture. Why this is true? I also want us to know that things are a lot different today. There is a better student-professor relationship. You know, I earlier mentioned that the communal thing, working together. Nonetheless, instances where power distance exists, it affects academic mentorship negatively. And I think our leaders are coming to know that. And with the drive to want to impact these ones, we are rather making them to know, to learn what it takes, to interact with an other or as somebody elderly to them. And our students are coping. So in order to ensure student ability to seek help, psycho-emotional help, like in my case as a counselor, you should know if there's one of our attributes is that we must be approachable. And I also want to believe that for any lecturer, any professor that want to have impact, that want to be a mentor to anybody, we should remove this age-long power distance and begin to think about mentorship. When it involves mentorship, then honestly, the power thing will be off. However, the place of respect is very important, which we also cherish in this part of the world. We can balance it. So therefore, in our case, the power distance thing is gradually fading away. Even our young ones are getting to know that with humility and respect, they will gain a lot from their lecturers, their professors, and any other elderly person, people that can contribute to their life meaningfully. So these are not, in my days, it could be so obvious, that you may not be able to talk to your professor, but now, honestly, it's different. It's different because we have come to understand that it could have, in fact, it has negative impact on mentorship. So with this now, our students are willing to ask for help. They are willing to have for help. They see their professor as authority figure. that should not be carelessly romanced, but could be consulted to help, to be of a benefit to them. So the gap, the unhealthy gap between the elder and the youth, in a nutshell, is being eroded. We are not saying there shouldn't be respect and gap where you defer to authority, but the unhealthy one, where you could not, pass on a lot of good things to people coming behind us. What's the essence of the knowledge we had that we couldn't pass to generation to come? So because of that, that is being taken care of, so that any unhealthy gap will be taken away between our students, professors, teaching or non-teaching. As long as we are there to help them, to also prepare them for the community, because we meet them out there. So it is very important that Nigeria are looking into this power distance, and we are trying to model a method that will help our young ones to learn, irrespective of distance. As they learn, they also learn respect along.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bimpe. And you've said something very important, which we actually advocate for here in the US, relational advising. We talk about transactional advising, and we also talk about relational advising. And transactional advising is the kind of advising that has no emotion. It's like when a student comes to your office, you just give them what they want, without any holistic form of discussion or anything, without understanding the student. That is transactional. You just give the student what they want, you are done with them, they are out of the door. Then we talk about relational advising, which we advocate for, which goes something like what you have just explained. A student comes in and you are interested to know about the student. You are interested to know about how their day is going. You are interested in knowing what could be other resources that they may need, not just what they came to your office for. That is relational. And that's what we want students to be able to do. Come to our offices, feel like they belong, feel like they can share more than why they came there, and truly be supported without any issues. And so thank you so much for bringing that point. Very, very important. And let's switch gears a little bit to talk about the students themselves. Gugu, you mentioned about technology. We are going to talk a little bit more about technology, in the next few minutes. But I wanted us to talk about students at this point, because we don't have, for the majority of students going to college, it's really a privilege to be there. College is a big deal. Going to the university is a big deal in most African countries, because we don't really have enough spots for everyone. When I think about Kenya, where I come from, we only have a certain number of seats in any university. And so majority of the students that do the finals or that do the high school exams, hoping to go to the university, and Professor Muema can talk about this, eventually don't. So it's really a big privilege for students going into the university. So my question to all of you is, how would you describe the students' drive to succeed in college, given that kind of privilege, given that kind of opportunity? How would you describe their drive to succeed? And we can start with you, Dr. Bimpe, this time.
Okay, thank you. Student drive to succeed. The first thing I will mention here is coming to college is not just a decision like going to kindergarten school. When it comes to going to kindergarten school, the child does not even know anything. It's just being put in school. But when it comes to coming to college, why am I here? That is the first drive. What is the child coming to do? what informed the decision, starting from the course that the student is taking. If a child is being forced, which I don't think there is anything like that again with this present dispensation of our Gen Z children, when a child is being forced or not going in a direction that is so much love, that cannot give a child a good drive. It will not be optimistic in focusing in getting this academic work through. So the first drive is the passion. The child wants to go for what he loves to do. I don't know if myself as an example, my family, I have only my baby in the university. Is the only one there now. And when he wanted to prepare for, in Nigeria, we do JAMB. We know he has this attribute and aptitude for something related to animal. Even when it comes to poultry, all of those even when he was in primary school, we go into the bush looking for, grasshopper, packing, walk gecko, So we know that this boy likes vet medicine, but somehow, because of his ability, we want him to go for medicine, just because we felt that should be more popular, more than vet. So we encouraged him. We didn't force him that go for medicine, leave vet medicine. It's not the prospect, looking at it, go and read more. But eventually he convinced us, Mommy, Daddy, this is what I love. This is we know it, but we're looking at some other reasons. Eventually he was allowed to take it. He did it, and he was admitted by merit. When he got to the place, of course, all the challenges, a lot of people were dropping out, and he said it was so involving, the challenge is much. Presently, it's even about graduating. But the drive was just because that was what he wanted, the passion. So that is the first thing. Then another thing that makes a child, the drive to succeed, is what am I going to do with this? Every one of us that went to the university is because, first of all, apart from our job satisfaction, our career satisfaction, it's also to make a living. So in a situation like the problem we have in Africa, many of our curriculum, many of these courses we have in our university, when we get out there, how operational, how are we able to get job? So this is a drive that is not being satisfied. That's the reason many a times we see many students dropping out, because they couldn't see future. Nothing. I've gone to university. My father went to university. When he finished, he had a ready-made job. He was given a car. He had a house. He was given. But now, nothing like that. That will also disrupt, a positive thinking towards a student academic. But when there is a surety for a future, for living, what I've worked and labored on, I'm going to get to use it to get a living, to be somebody. That will also ginger and give a very strong drive to such a student to put in his or her best, because he knows that at the end of this labor, of this toil, there is something worthwhile for me to get. So these are the two things: the passion for what I'm doing, and what am I going to get at the end? What is this going to put on my table? What reputation am I going to get in this? These are very important drive when it comes to students' academic success or their passion for what they do on campus.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mbindyo. Let's go to you, Professor Jonathan.
Thank you, Margaret. In Kenya, the situation now is not very good, because most students realize that they're not getting jobs after they finish their education. And now the drive from the students is changing from what we had in our times, because in our times, and Margaret, I was in Kenyatta University just like yourself, that's where I schooled. in our time, we worked hard to get jobs so that we may run away from poverty. Now, our children right now don't experience the poverty and hardships that we experienced in our times. So now their drive now is just a social status that I have gone to campus, I am graduating with a degree, and then my villagers or my people will celebrate me. So now, because that drive is not that important, most of our students are missing classes because they don't see the importance of doing well. But we must say Kenya is in the process of changing the curriculum from the 844, the what we call 844, to competence-based learning, which I believe it is the one that is that is in America, Canada, and other countries. Now, in this new curriculum, we are encouraging students to be innovative. We are encouraging students to say what they can do out of learning. After they learn, what can they do? So now our education is no longer focused on examinations, but it is focused on what students can do. So now the first batch that we are seeing in the university, because we are in the second year of the competence-based learning, and the second years we have aligned their curriculum with competence-based learning. We see now the interest is now increasing, and most of the students now are falling in love with learning, and they come to class, they're able to work, they ask questions, and they do demonstrations. Whenever you give them something to do, you find that they have gone beyond what you are teaching them. So I think in changing it from the former curriculum to the competence-based learning, the students are likely now to create more interest in learning, and those other challenges will reduce. Challenges like indiscipline, drinking, taking drugs, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. Gugu.
You started us off by actually placing emphasis on the number of students that graduate out of high school and they urge to come into university. Mm-hmm. And for us that is very true. Many of our learners coming out of our schooling system place so much emphasis on going to university, and it's absolutely similar to Kenya. It's about socioeconomic status. There's this belief that going to university gives me a greater opportunity of being economically active. But what we are trying to do, and this has been gazetted by our government, is we're widening our definition of post-secondary education, where we're also placing emphasis on technical and vocational education that also enables education that enables entrepreneurship, boiler making, welding, and all the technical occupations that are not the traditional spaces. But what we in the universities are doing is also placing emphasis on what we call graduate attributes, and also placing emphasis on exposure to business and the markets, bringing in much of the companies into our curriculum to co-teach with us. That creates an exposure for the students while they're at university, but also for them to realize that it's not traditional occupations that exist anymore. There's multiple dimensions of a curriculum or a graduation certificate and what it enables. So I think for us, the big game changer is really introducing entrepreneurial mindset into our curriculum, to change that mindset and that desperation of only seeing a certificate, a university certificate, as a tool as a means to an end, and economic emancipation. We're trying to really change the mind of the student that you might be doing a bachelor's degree majoring in accounting, but you might end up in a firm that you're not even focusing on accounting. We're trying to really place emphasis on the flexibility of a degree and what it enables. It enables the thinking, it's the mindset that is enabled by a qualification, so that we don't congest the system where learners only see one path. So I think in widening the types of education post-secondary school is one of the big levers we're seeing alleviate the pressure that we've felt as universities of learners pushing to come into universities and forcing us to widen access, because that's absolutely not possible. In South Africa, we only have 26 public universities, but some are opting now for the private education, and we're trying to see how that will hold hands with the public sector in creating more opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I actually asked this question based on experience here in the US. Drive for success academically is not always there. And we struggle as faculty with students who have all the resources, have all the supports. They are not utilizing them. They are not going to class. I had a student this last semester. He was in my class, and he was actually repeating that class. And I asked him, what happened? And he was like, I never went to class. I just didn't go to class. I stayed in the dorm playing games, video games. He didn't have a GPA. His GPA was 0. I mean, a freshman, 0 GPA. And I said, what happened? And he was very open with me. He said, I never went to any class. I just stayed in the dorm playing video games. And we had a conversation with him because he was taking my class, not for the second time. He was taking that, my class for the second time. The first time he took it with another professor. And by the end of this last semester, his GPA was a 1.64. For this student to have brought his GPA from 0 to 1.64, it means that he actually worked very hard this last semester. And I called him, I said, your GPA right now is a 1.64. I want you to really be proud of yourself. You worked very hard this semester. You listened to what we shared and maybe what your parents talk to you about when you brought home a 0.0 GPA. So this student does not have the required academic standing GPA, which is a 2.0, but is on his way there. What I'm simply saying is that we have students, irrespective of where they come from, doesn't matter the resources, doesn't matter the degree, the drive is not there. They possibly chose that major for themselves, or possibly some relatives or friends influenced them in choosing that major, or they came in as undecided students. And so when we encounter those kind of students, then what happens? So thank you so much for all your wonderful answers. I really do appreciate. We are going to switch gears a little bit, and we are going to talk about the kind of struggles students face, because we have all sorts of struggles, whether you are in Nairobi, in Lagos, in South Africa, Johannesburg, whether you are in Cairo, the US, New York. Students' struggles are universal. They are just the same, especially in this era of technology. What is the one universal truth about student success you've discovered that transcends national borders? Let's start with you, Gugu.
If I may, I think the one thing I've come to learn in my years of working in student success is student debt or student funding, student finance. That I've come to learn cuts across. In the US context, I've learned that students are very careful how they select their classes because they're concerned about the affordability of doing that. And some of them end up working while they're studying. Mm-hmm. In the South African context, we don't have that luxury of doing part-time studies. Many of our universities are full-time studies. So students are dependent on finding funding sources that can sustain them. We fortunately have a national student financial aid system. But what we've come to realize is that financial aid system does not give students the requisite amount to survive on a monthly basis. So the means to an end from the first of the month to the end of the month doesn't get them through. Students in South Africa that are on the national student financial aid system have a mere 50 Rand live on for food every single day if you divide their monthly stipend. So it is finances, but in various means that I've seen cuts across and requires of students to be creative in how they navigate university. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Professor Jonathan.
One truth about universal truth about student success is that students thrive when they feel seen, supported, and connected. Whether in Nairobi, Chicago, Tocho, or wherever, students succeed when someone believes in them, listens to them, and helps them to navigate challenges. And I can give an example of my own daughter who joined university 2 weeks ago. She went to the university. She went to high school. She was not doing well. Of course, I knew it's because she was not getting serious with her work. So at some point, I felt discouraged why my daughter is not doing well. But one day, I just decided that I will go and encourage her and tell her that I believe in her and that she is as bright as her father, and she's going to pass in her examination. And she asked me, didn't you think I can pass and go to the university? I told her, yes, if I pass, why not you? And she worked smart, and right now she's in the university, and she's doing very well. She did very well, and she's very much interested in learning. I have also had experienced colleagues with the high school students. You know, here in Kenya, we take care of institutions, high schools, in terms of being chairman of board of management. And I believe I've been given very weak schools to chair. And I have always encouraged the boys and girls who are very weak, and they've ended up doing well. So to me, I believe that self-esteem is one very strong force that if well utilized, if well used by us professors universally, our students will do well. They will not be disciplined. So I believe in cultivating strong self-esteem and a strong self-concept. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bepi.
Oh, thank you. One thing I observed that brings about student success, irrespective of all over the nation one comes from, that transcend national border. Just like Professor have said, everything else like good advising, all other tools, financial aid could work. But when it is built on the foundation of a caring relationship, when a student believes that I'm not just a number here, someone will notice if I disappear, it helps to succeed. So connectivity, having a sense of belonging, having an identity with a group. We've seen students that drop out of school, not because they're academically poor. Some are academically capable, but because of not just having that self-esteem, not belonging, not knowing how to, how to connect. So this is very, very important as regard student success across all borders. Then just like I also know financial aid, in our own side in Nigeria, we have serious financial problem for our students. And this is a great struggle that you just hear of students, what about this person? Dropped out, packed his load or a load and left. But where there is aid, and thank God, I want to thank our university, and the government is trying now. We have something now that the federal government have introduced, and it is called NEL Fund. Though it's like a loan to the students, but the loan has a condition of when they graduate, all the policies put in place is not that you just got any kind of job. There is a way they also measure the kind of job before you start paying back. This has helped many of our students. It's not only the school fees, They also provide monthly stipend. Honestly, it's a great help to students. And many of them are seeing the hope of finishing. They are even ready to take it because they know without finances, they may not be able to scale through. So when we talk about relationship, belonging, having an identity among the people you are, people that can notice that this person is not here. There is a kind of comfort that you even have in that, coupled with this other provision that the federal government is making available. I know even in advanced countries, European countries, many of the students, they go to college with loan.
Oh, yeah.
But here, it is strange to us. Even some parents that couldn't provide for their children now are even discouraged. Don't collect the loan, no, you'll be in debt. But with education, with sensitization, we've been making them to realize that which one is better, that you drop out or you continue. And we've seen our students having hope, getting this financial aid so that they can succeed. So since why I said this also transcend national borders is because I know it is already in practice, this financial aid in some other countries. So that means financing education is very, very important. You may have the brain, you may have every other thing, but when the finance is not there, how will you be able to get it? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful responses to this. I will summarize because this is important. And I like what Professor Jonathan said, that believing in students is so important. Just believing in them, encouraging them. In your university, wherever you are, talking to students, whether you know them or not, just, telling them that, you are in the right place. You are going to do well. When they come to your office, giving hope and impactive positivity in students by encouraging them, by telling them, you know what, you didn't do well last semester, but this semester things are going to be better. If you need help, please come back. Connecting students with resources and so on. And then you talked about creating that sense of belonging for students. Let me tell you, if any one of us does not feel that sense of belonging wherever we are working, it's going to be very difficult for us to be productive. So a sense of belonging for each one of us, for students, is very critically important. And so we have to ensure that we are creating a sense of belonging for our students. And finally, both you, Dr. Mbindyo and Gugu, you talked about providing that financial support for students. Very important. Otherwise, how are they going to support themselves for a successful academic year or to get their degree if the university or even the country does not look for ways of supporting students? And actually, that led me to a question that I was going to ask you anyway, because a lot of people in the West, America, Europe, Japan, wherever they are, the first world countries, think possibly that Africa is so poor that supporting students financially or to go through school is almost next to impossible. Can you please very briefly, because we don't have a lot of time, share with us how do students, where do they get money to support themselves for college, for subsistence, for accommodation and things like that? Let's start with you, Professor Jonathan.
Yes, again, ladies and gentlemen, in Kenya, it's becoming increasingly complex because of the economic times. We remember that in our times, we used to get enough bursaries and loans from the government, but nowadays it is quite a challenge in Kenya. Whereas majority of the students depend on their parents, the parents who are able. There is still a very significant number where the parents cannot afford the education. And the government is exploring on alternatives on how it can support the students. So students try to survive. They try to do all these things to survive in the university. Thank you.
To add on to that, Professor, I know we have bursaries in Kenya where students get these bursaries from their local counties. And we also have the Higher Education Loans Board, of course, which is some form of financial aid where students can get a little money to support themselves in the university or even pay for their education in the university. But these are hard times, really, all over the globe. Economically, for a lot of people, it's a real struggle. Gugu, what are you doing in South Africa?
I think for us, there's a lot of creative ways for the students themselves, because students have agency. We're seeing entrepreneurship come up. They're using their gifts and their talents. Some of them do hair, some of them do makeup, just to make a few extra bucks to get by through the month. So we're seeing that. Of course, the dependency on families that are able to bridge that financial gap still exists. But the university also has means such as tutoring, where students can take up tutoring and earn some money while they learn, is something we're seeing. Of course, the bursaries. And we've adopted and adapted it from the US context is the notion of completion grants, so micro grants to just capitalize on co-funding the students' journey. So multiple means, but both from a university, but also agency from the students is coming alive.
Awesome. Thank you. Dr. Mbimpe.
Thank you. I earlier mentioned what we do in Nigeria, federal government, we call it NELFund loan, student loan. That is one. Also, we have capable parents sponsoring their students. In my own university, FUTA, we also have a program called Work Study Program, where students engaged. There are some jobs that the university provided. It could be in the water factory, it could be in the bakery, tailoring it with those students that are in need, that are indigent. They show interest, they fix them on the job based on their timetable so that it will not conflict with their lectures, and through that, student gets stipend. We also have our students are also, many of them are now entrepreneurs. So they do one business or the other. We also have philanthropies, scholarship, even bursaries, student bursaries, state level, local government, individuals. These are ways by which our students manage to sponsor their schooling, their education, their upkeep here in Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mbimpe. I would like Dr. Jonathan to talk a little bit about their rampant system of raising funds for the local good student, where the community gets together and they do fundraising for a student that shows, potential. Can you talk a little bit about that, Professor Mwania?
Thank you, Margaret. That was taking place sometimes ago, but right now it's a little bit of a challenge because we have got so many students going to the university from one village. So now people, I think, they are no longer interested in fundraising, because even if you organize for an Arambi or fundraise, you will get very few responses. So that has become a challenge, because the number of students who are going to the university and other tertiary institutions is increasing. And Margaret, I will say that I need to go to South Africa and benchmark with Google because they seem to be doing very well. But I must say, in Kenya, students still do those constructive things. There are those students who are good, they don't want to engage in bad behaviors, so they engage in constructive ways of making money. But again, you see now the opportunities are also rare. So we have students who are struggling with education. Some of them defer their studies. They take up to 8 years in the university because of such challenges. So you find that if you have students who is not persistent, then they're not likely to complete their education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for this wonderful, wonderful discussion. Really, really eye-opening. I would like to take you back to the kind of advising you are all doing in your respective countries. I know South Africa is already set. You know, you have a strong South African academic advising community that is doing great work. And this is actually an allied member of NACADA, which is the National Academic Advising organization in the US, which caters for advising needs all over the globe. In Nigeria, Dr. Mbindyo, what are you doing to professionalize advising or to create a structured advising?
In Nigeria, just like every other nation, I believe, particularly in Africa, to a very large extent, the Western structure remains dominant. Here in Nigeria, we are working towards that, towards professionalizing. But in this sense, you know that our system of education is, to a large extent, a Western structure. But presently, with globalization, understanding technology, we are pushing towards incorporating African framework. Due to the contradiction we've experienced in those ones that we have taken in hook, line, sinker, we have to bring in our own framework, our own model, considering our culture, our environment when it comes to advising. So structuralizing it in the present structure or Western education structure we have might not be the solution to our whole problem. What is important is that academic advising is being done. So in Nigeria, we're working towards that. What we have presently in a structural form in the university is having the like departmental level advisor. You understand? Student affairs counseling unit. It could be faculty-led, it could be part-time, you know, where it is not all that professionalized way of advising, the structured one. But the work, what is important is that presently the work is being done, where we talk about registration, where the students are guided into welfare, their development, career, how to be academic support. We are being proactive, though it may not have been structured in the Western way, but we are looking at what works with our system, with our culture, how we can help our students get direction in an African adapted model, not a straight copy from Western world. I mean, structured in our own model. Are you getting it? So that is where we are now.
I have a question. I have a question. So do you envision having advisors, like professional academic advisors?
Yes, we have department level advisors. We have registration advisors. Do you get that? We also have in the student affairs counseling unit. There are ways that are being programmed where from one department to the other, there are counselors in different schools. There are counselors adding different faculty. There is this link where students are being referred, and even among the lecturers, we have departmental level advisors. When it comes to academic advising or anything related to the academic work, this individual, we attend to that. So it's structured.
Yeah, thank you very much. For the sake of the United States professionals in advising, counselors belong to a totally different unit. they deal with mental health. They deal with, that part of student life. Academic advisors are strictly academic. So is there that distinction in Nigeria?
Yes, there is. We have that distinction. That's the reason why in our own in Nigeria, we have academic advisors. We call them department level advisors.
Okay. Professor Jonathan, we don't have a lot of time. We only have a few minutes. And I have two more questions.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. In Kenya, there is definitely a growing push to professionalize academic advising, especially as universities expand and the student needs become more complex in Kenya. However, the goal is not simply to copy Western advising models. There is increasing interest in building an African-centered framework that reflects our communal values, realities, and educational systems. And advising in many Kenyan universities is still largely faculty-based. And that means that you find that each university have got somebody who does academic advising. In Kenyan universities, we call them career masters. So now here, lecturers or departments, chairs, guide students academically. Though some institutions are now creating structured student success and the mentorship offices. That is the situation in Kenyan context.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Gugu, would you like to add anything to this discussion?
No, I think, Margaret, you've flagged much of what we're doing. The professionalization remains core to us. So at the moment, we're focused on capacitating peer advisors who are student leaders and then professionalizing advising. And in that's where we're differentiating then the different nuances of then what exists, because then we've got the curriculum advisors who focus solely on just advising students based on their curriculum and their academic progression. So for us, we've tried to keep the approaches very simplified to ensure that there's again, that metaphor of a community supporting students and creating agency from multiple ends.
Thank you so much. I have two more questions. And let's talk about technology. We cannot conclude this discussion without talking about technology, because in most African countries, there is an implosion of technology, whether it's young people owning a phone and using that phone for business, whether that business is being contacted in YouTube or in whatever. How can students especially, and even supporting staff, faculty, advisors, guidance counselors, psychologists, leverage the technology that we already have in place for student success?
Thank you. Technology has really helped us a lot in Nigeria, and not because we want to boast. We all know that when it comes to African Tech Hub, we will also mention Nigeria, and how we leverage that on student success is very, very important. But I want to mention here that what we see more is the leveraging on commercial basis, and the efforts to help student success is not all that prioritized by our government. But however, thank God that technology is something that everyone who is at least educated to a certain point can also learn to use. So our students have been using that. But you know, where the problem is when it is not checked, where there is no back end where someone had to control one thing or the other, it could be dangerous. So this technology we have now has been helping our students to use what they see available to use. And many a times, these young ones are even more, they are smarter than the system.
Thank you. In the interest of time, Professor Jonathan, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. As I agree with Dr. Olusanya, I want to say that Kenya's growing tech ecosystem presents huge opportunities for students, success, digital platforms, mobile learning, all-powered support systems, and affordable online resources can improve on advising, early intervention, and student engagement. Since the mobile technology already is deeply integrated into daily life in Kenya, leveraging these tools for academic support is both practical and scalable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Jonathan. Gugu.
I think, Margaret, I'll also just wrap by giving a very brief example of how we've leveraged tech in South Africa, and using the analogy of meeting the students where they are. We've actually adopted what we call the WhatsApp chatbot, because of our students being so actively on chatbots or on their cell phones. We've leveraged that to make information accessible for students. And for us, that has increased the accessibility of information for students, but also the agency for students, because in them identifying a problem, they're immediately able to just pick up their phone, and as an everyday means of getting by, they are able to then get support or get the appropriate information. And for us, that has really played a central role in how we, as Prof. Jonathan says, we scale advising support, create more parity in what information is available and reliable information, but also just in us being able to meet their students at their point of need. So I think for us, I'm giving that example because there's many technologies that have been adopted, but for one that I can definitely say has increased or expanded and contributed positively to student success is using a WhatsApp line that also then leans into being high tech, but also high touch, because if the chatbot cannot communicate or provide that reliable information, we always have an academic advisor that is on the back end that they can speak to and have a live chat about. So our chatbot is AI enhanced, but you also have the high touch of a human being that is manning it, and of course having the opportunity to walk into someone's office and have that opportunity to have the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So greatly appreciated. Fantastic points. In the interest of time, we have come to our last question. I know there is a lot that we could have talked about, but I would like to ask that you offer one piece of advice to academic advisors and educators around the world, based on your experience in your country, working with students. What would you want the audience or the people that are going to listen to this discussion take away? Let's start with you, Dr. Mbindyo.
Thank you. What I want to advise academic advisors across the world, please incorporate, if you are not in Africa, the sense of belonging, the inclusiveness of our students, being empathetic, involving, carrying them along when it comes to helping them, because you cannot help someone whom you are not even part of such a life, in being in part of the person's life, helping the person to know that you also matters. So this is very, very important. It takes the village to raise a child in Africa, we all need it. We all need this in our relationship with our students. That is what I want us to take home. And for us in Africa, as much as westernization is trying to take the integration, the family integration away from us, please, it's going to be disastrous. Let us also know that everything starts from the home front. Let's be involved. The academic advising, let us not forget that it is like a service to humanity. It is not just about your work, but you are helping someone to get it right. So please let us not leave that behind. Let us not leave that behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mbimpe. Professor Jonathan.
One key lesson from the Kenyan experience is that student success is deeply relational. Academic advice should not focus only on course selection or grades, but also on understanding the student's social, emotional, financial, and cultural realities. In Kenya, many students succeed because someone took time to notice them, encourage them, and walk alongside them through the challenges. I would encourage advisors and educators around the world to build systems that prioritize human connection, empathy, and belonging. Students perform better when they feel seen, respected, and supported as whole people, not just as learners in a classroom. Another important takeaway is the value of community-centered support. In many Kenyan contexts, peer networks, family involvement, faith communities, and informal student groups are powerful contributors to persistence and resilience. Universities should recognize and collaborate with these support systems rather than viewing them as separate from formal education. Finally, technology should enhance human support, not replace it. Digital tools, AI, and online advising systems are valuable, but they work best when combined with genuine mentorship and meaningful relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. So greatly appreciated. Gugu.
I think from my side, I would say embody the spirit of Ubuntu. And I think a lot of us can do some research on what Ubuntu means, but it's really about having that sense of community, because essentially education is an escalator to economic and social mobility. And we need to keep advising at the center of our coordinated and collaborative efforts to achieve the lived reality of student success. And I want to say to every advisor across the globe, let us continue these efforts, because the work that we do lives for many, many generations that will definitely surpass us. And I think that is our responsibility and our call of duty, as we have been entrusted to support the students and ensure that they reach their envisaged goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think I can sum it up by saying that all of us in this call have said that success, student success, is about collaboration, is about talking to one another, talking to the student, referring students to supports that they need, being available, providing that sense of belonging to students, motivating students, mentoring them, and encouraging them to do their best. I want to thank each one of you for your time. This has been an excellent discussion about advising in Africa, and I know that a lot is happening there. These are only 3 countries represented. Africa has more than 45 countries, and the experiences of advisors in those countries may vary depending on their culture, depending on their geographical location, depending on their economics, their politics, but all of us are united in the fact that we are working hard towards student success. And so I want to wish you all the best in your respective institutions, in your respective countries. Please carry the light of academic success and student support so that your students can continue to excel in their academics and so that you can be fulfilled as a professional. Thank you so much for your willingness to take part in this podcast. I believe it's going to be eye-opening to a lot of people, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.